I want to try something I haven't done in a long time. I was looking through my old files, looking for some things to create a presentation on symmetry, and I found where I was trying to create a presentation demonstrating a technique uh, that I used to use years ago in Photoshop, where I used actions to create recursive drawings. And here's one of the files I found where I was doing screen grabs to show the steps of the process. And if you look at this, you can see that this is from the icons and interface. This is Photoshop 7. I'm currently using CS6 here. So you can tell I was creating this presentation quite a while ago. But I'm going to see if I can use these files to recreate this. I'm still interested in recursive imagery. This is an example of one form of that. It's kind of a fractal, but it's a hand-drawn fractal pattern. The pattern of the design is what I call a binary grid, where you have a grid cell, and then you go out one from that, and you have a cell that is exactly half the width and height, with a transformation like a rotation or a reflection could be used as well for some variation. Now, creating something like this is a very repetitive process. Therefore, Photoshop actions become a good candidate for trying to create that. Just looking at the layers in this file here, you can see this is the design I created. It looks kind of like a floor tile, like a ceramic floor tile or something like that. Then in here, after creating it, I went in and tried some different color effects to get some different variations to make it a little more exciting. Here's another version here where you have the repeating pattern, and then there's a branch and a leaf aspect to it. Now, while it's natural to think of this sort of pattern as a branching pattern, it doesn't necessarily have to be. Here, I just have a gradient-filled square repeating, and it does branch, and when combined with the other one, using a different color mode here, get some interesting color effects going. All right, so let's see if I can recreate this. When you're using Photoshop Actions, you have to be very meticulous. It just repeats whatever you do, and it's usually fairly hard to get the steps exactly right so that when you play the action back, you get exactly the same result. There are a number of things that can create problems in playback. I'll try to avoid them here. Now, I haven't done this in years, so hopefully I'll get it right the first time. Here you see my starting pattern. This is the glyph that is being repeated. I created an 800 by 800 pixel document with a grid, dividing it up into 16 smaller squares. I drew something that gets 50% smaller. Notice that on this end it's one whole unit, on this end it's half of one of these units. So as we iterate the design, it should all match up. Okay, so this is a background image, so there are no transparent pixels here, which makes the transformations in Photoshop a little more consistent. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to duplicate this entire image, scale it 50%, paste it into each corner, rotate two of them, merge down. Let's see how that works. Okay, so I'm going to go into my Actions panel, which is this guy. I don't have an action for this yet, so I'm going to create a new one. And this is going to be called So this is a binary grid, bigrid. I'm going to try to assign this to the F2 key. It looks like it's available. So I can repeat this action by hitting F2. I'm going to start recording. First thing I want to do is duplicate the background layer. Now I have background copy. If I do Control T or Command T, I could go in and put in a 50% horizontal and vertical scaling. I'm going to click OK and move that into this corner. With that in place, I'm going to hold down the Alt key and drag down. This one I am going to rotate 90 degrees. Transform 90 degrees clockwise. I'm now going to drag that one to this corner. I am going to transform, rotate this 180 degrees. I now have the pattern I want. I am going to merge these all down, so I'm going to flatten the image. I am now back to having just a background image. At this point, I'm going to stop recording. And if I did everything correctly, since I'm at the same starting point with a single background layer selected, I should be able to hit F2 and iterate this process. I should be able to hit F2 and iterate this process. Again. And again. Okay, so I successfully created an action that created, I could count them, but since the number of cells increases geometrically, I've saved myself a lot of work by creating an action for this.